Listen carefully. Laziness is poison. It destroys men quietly. It doesn't attack you like an enemy with a sword. It eats you from the inside. Every day you waste scrolling, sleeping in, avoiding work. Laziness is pulling the trigger on your future. If you don't kill it now, it will kill every dream, every opportunity, every chance you have to become powerful. Laziness is the silent killer of ambition. It's not the enemies outside that destroy most men. It's the disease inside, the weakness, the hesitation, the constant whispers of do it tomorrow. I've seen this poison up close, not only in others, but in myself. There were days I had nothing. No money, no power, no comfort. I was sitting in a freezing apartment with no heat, staring at a broken microwave, eating the same bland food every day. And in those moments, laziness was screaming at me to give up, to just lie down, to accept life as it was. But I knew something very clearly. If I surrendered to laziness, I'd stay there forever. You think laziness is harmless, but it isn't. It's a thief. Every hour you waste scrolling on your phone, every morning you sleep in, when you should be grinding, laziness is stealing from you. It's stealing your chance to escape mediocrity. It's stealing the opportunity to build something powerful. When I was broke, when I was hustling, when I had nothing in my pocket but determination, laziness was the one voice I had to strangle every single day. Because it told me, rest, relax, you've worked hard enough. No, I hadn't. Hard enough doesn't exist when your life is broken. I had to force myself to move, even when I was exhausted, even when I had no clear plan. I went to the gym when I didn't feel like it. I learned skills when my brain was fried. I pushed through fights, injuries, pain, because I knew the second I let laziness win, even once, it would come back stronger the next day. That's what most men don't understand. Laziness compounds. You skip one day, it becomes two. Two becomes a week. Before you know it, 5 years have vanished, and you're still the same useless version of yourself. Broke, weak, invisible. The world doesn't hand out success. Nobody is going to knock on your door and say, congratulations, here's the life you dreamed of. The only way to get it is to wake up and fight for it. And laziness is the first enemy you have to kill. Because if you don't, laziness will kill your future. It'll bury every dream you had before it even had a chance to breathe. Kill your laziness before it buries your potential. Hustle, fight, push, and take what's yours. Comfort is a trap, and most men don't even realize they've walked into it. They think comfort is reward, that lying in bed a little longer, watching some show, ordering food instead of cooking, skipping the hard work is harmless. But that comfort is the exact reason why they're stuck. Comfort is where ambition goes to die. I learned this the hard way. When I was broke, when I had no money, no luxuries, no safety net, comfort was not an option. I didn't have the choice to relax. I didn't have the chance to say, I'll take it easy today. My reality was simple: work or suffer, grind or starve, move or starve, move forward or stay trapped in a life I hated. But then I watched other men with just enough to survive, fall into the comfort cycle. They'd come home from work, grab a beer, sit on the couch, and waste hours doing nothing. They weren't starving, they weren't desperate, so they accepted their cage. I refused that life. I refuse to be owned by a sofa, a TV, or a bed, because that's all comfort is, a beautiful prison. It makes you feel good while it chains you down. There were nights I wanted comfort more than anything. I wanted to sleep all day. I wanted to escape. I wanted to forget the stress. But I forced myself to go to the gym, to study, to hustle, to fight, to push. Everything in me screamed for rest. I sacrificed comfort for progress because I knew comfort wasn't going to buy me freedom. Comfort wasn't going to put me on the path to power. Comfort wasn't going to save me when life punched me in the face. You see, comfort gives you nothing but weakness. Every time you choose comfort, you are choosing to stay the same. And the same is unacceptable if you're not already living the life you want. If you're broke, weak, invisible, and you keep choosing comfort, you've already chosen failure. Real growth lives in discomfort. Strength is born in the days you don't want to move, but still force yourself to. Success is carved out by those who walk straight into discomfort while others hide in their soft little cages. Kill the comfort before it kills your drive. Comfort is the enemy, and only through discomfort will you ever build the life you want. Motivation is weak. It comes and goes like the wind, and if you rely on it, you'll never achieve anything real. Discipline is the only thing that separates the men who win from the men who stay average. People wait around saying, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll train when I feel motivated. I'll work when I feel inspired. That's a loser's mindset. If I had waited for motivation, I'd still be broke, sitting in a freezing apartment, wondering why my life wasn't changing. There were so many days when I didn't feel like doing anything. Days when I was exhausted, when my body ached, when my head was full of problems. I didn't feel motivated to train. I didn't feel motivated to work on my business. I didn't feel motivated to fight, but I did it anyway. That's discipline. Discipline is dragging yourself out of bed when your mind screams no. Discipline is training when you're tired, grinding when you're broke, pushing forward when the world is on your shoulders. That's how progress is made. When I was starting out, I didn't have motivation. I had bills piling up. I had no guarantees. I had constant stress. Motivation wasn't going to fix that. Discipline did. Discipline kept me moving forward when I was dead tired, when I had no energy, when I wanted to quit. And little by little, that discipline turned into results. Results build momentum. Momentum builds belief, and belief builds power. But none of that happens if you're waiting for some magical spark of motivation to arrive. Most men will never get this. They'll keep waiting for motivation to hit them. They'll say, I'll start next week. I'll change when I feel like it. But feelings are lies. If you live by your feelings, you'll be weak forever. Discipline doesn't care about feelings. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired or unmotivated. Discipline is the muscle you build when you force yourself to do what's necessary day after day, no matter how you feel. Kill your reliance on motivation and build discipline instead, because only discipline will drag you out of mediocrity and push you into greatness. Laziness feeds on stillness. The longer you sit around doing nothing, the heavier you become. The more you hesitate, the harder it gets to move. That's why action is everything. Once you force yourself to move even a little, momentum takes over. People think they need to feel ready before they act, but that's backwards. Readiness comes after action, not before it. I learned this when I had nothing. I'd sit there with no money, no comfort, no clear plan for how I was going to escape. If I stayed still, the thoughts would eat me alive: fear, doubt, laziness. But the moment I started doing something, training, hustling, making calls, building even the smallest opportunities, I felt power returning. Movement creates energy. When I first began fighting, I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the fastest, but I was the one who showed up. I kept moving forward when others sat out. I didn't wait until I felt like training. I trained until I felt like a machine. That movement built momentum. Each day stacked on top of the last, and slowly I became unstoppable. The same happened in business. I didn't know everything. I didn't have the perfect strategy, but I acted. I tried, I failed, I learned, I adjusted. The act of moving forward created opportunities that would have never appeared if I had stayed still. Most people sabotage themselves because they think too much and do too little. They wait for the perfect time. They analyze instead of acting, and in that hesitation, laziness grows stronger. The truth is, you don't need the perfect plan. You just need to start. The smallest action destroys laziness because it changes your state. Once you've started, it's easier to keep going. Like pushing a car, it's hardest at the beginning, but once it's rolling, momentum carries it forward. I've lived this every day of my life. I've been tired, broke, beaten down, but I never stopped moving. And because I refused to stop, I created momentum that carried me through battles most men would have surrendered in. Kill hesitation with action, because the second you start moving, laziness loses its grip on you. Excuses are nothing more than laziness dressed up to sound intelligent. Weak men hide behind excuses. Strong men face reality and create results. I've heard every excuse in the world. I'm tired. I don't have time. I'll start when things calm down. None of it matters. Life doesn't care about your excuses. The world doesn't pay you for your reasons. It pays you for your results. When I was broke, nobody wanted to hear why. Nobody cared that I had setbacks, that I had struggles, that life was unfair. All they saw was a man with nothing. My excuses didn't pay the bills. They didn't put food on the table. They didn't build a future. Only action did. I remember sitting in my flat with no money, looking at the bills piling up, thinking of all the reasons why I couldn't get ahead. It would have been easy to accept those reasons, to say, well, life's just stacked against me. But I realized that excuses are a drug. They give you temporary comfort, but permanent failure. So I cut them out of my life completely. Every time I caught myself saying, I can't, I replaced it with, how do I? That change in mindset was brutal, but it forced me to find answers instead of reasons to stay weak. You know, in fighting, nobody cares if you were injured, if you were tired, if you didn't sleep well the night before. When the bell rings, it's you and your opponent, and either you win or you lose. The same is true in life. People respect winners, not whiners. And the harsh truth is, every time you choose to believe your excuses, you're choosing to stay a loser. Strong men don't need sympathy, they need results. You know, when I look back at my hardest days, I didn't have time for excuses. I was too busy working, pushing, surviving, and that's what made the difference. While other men wasted their energy explaining why they couldn't, I was too busy proving that I could. That's the only mentality that builds strength, money, and freedom. Stop lying to yourself with excuses. Kill them completely, because the world only respects results. Laziness is not harmless, it's lethal. Most men don't realize that every time they choose to sit still, every time they say tomorrow, every time they pick comfort over progress, they're digging their own grave. Laziness doesn't just take away your day, it takes away your future. It kills opportunity before it ever shows up. It kills your health, your money, your confidence, your relationships. You don't just wake up one day broke, overweight, and invisible. It happens because laziness killed you slowly over the years while you pretended it was nothing. You know, I know this because I've lived on the edge of it. I've had days where the temptation to stay down was so strong, I'd wake up with no money, no certainty about the future, and laziness whispered in my ear, stay in bed, it won't matter. But it did matter. Every wasted day mattered. I saw men around me who listened to that voice. They let laziness consume them, and it destroyed their lives. 10 years later, they were still in the same place, still broke, still weak, still talking about what they could have been. Laziness killed every possibility they had before it ever had the chance to live. And when I had nothing, the only thing that kept me alive was refusing to give in to laziness. I had to fight myself every single day. I forced myself to work when I had no energy. I forced myself to train when my body was screaming. I forced myself to take action when I had no guarantee it would pay off. Because I knew the truth. If I gave laziness 1 inch, it would take everything from me. That's how dangerous it is. Laziness is like rust. Leave metal sitting in the rain long enough, it doesn't break all at once. It just slowly decays until it's useless. That's what happens to men who let laziness stay in their lives. They don't notice it until it's too late. By the time they wake up, they've lost years, their dreams are gone, and they're trapped in a life they hate. Laziness kills everything you want. Kill it first, or it will bury your potential and leave you with nothing but regret. Kill your laziness before it buries your potential. Hustle, fight, push, and take what's yours.